Alright, so here's where I'm at on the grill. So I went ahead and used cold rolled flat bar, a 1/4 inch. It's pretty much the same as the original one that I bought with the kit. So my goal was to fill in this space to where I had a pretty even run off the UHMW and the Grate. And I have seen where, you know, people say, oh, you want some inset on your grate so that rocks don't push up. And it's like, well, part of my problem is I just have this lip back here. So unless I engineered something that gradually went forward that it could roll off of to not catch this lip, which I suppose I could do, but I don't know. I suppose I could add it to that aluminum there. Maybe get a big chunk. I don't know. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and go with this. You know, I can change it later. One thing I kind of wanted to do was attempt to distribute, you know, any impacts onto the hole and the intake ring a little more evenly. With this grate, your intake manifold takes the full hit of the brunt of the hit. So I don't know. It might not really matter the way this thing's glued and bolted down to the intake ring itself. There's a lot of bolts in there, but you know, I would rather put the head into the hole, which it ultimately does anyway. You know, and we're connected to the transom back here, so you know, you're also transferring that to the transom to some extent. And you got a 3/8 inch keel, so I don't know, might not be that big a deal. Might be just be nitpicking, but for now I just wanted to get it to where the it was basically just a smooth transition across it. So the rest is kind of like whatever. We'll see how things go. You know, I spaced them exactly the same as these. They're directly in line with them. But I'm essentially adding another inch of grate. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But so this is, oh, that sucker's heavy. This is actually how it's going to sit in there. It's pretty tight, but I'll just kind of set it there for the moment. So it's going to sit like that, and essentially when I cut the UHMW, I'm just going to cut it right up to this edge. So I went ahead and ground down these edges here, these welds, and to a point where I could bring this up at a straight angle and right up to the edge of this. So essentially, and I guess I'll have to get a router or something, router bit, and you know, take off the sharp edges. It seemed like a good idea, stuff I've seen in videos. Not too worried about the front. This thing's gonna be rolling off of this direction, but in the back, I don't know, I think it's gonna come off the grate, and ultimately because of this dip here, unless I correct that, like fill it in and smooth it out, it's going to come off the grate and then drop slightly to hit that UHMW. I'll probably take the sharp edge off of it. But so anyway, I'm going to try and get this grate, you know, the UHMW tight around it, and hopefully won't have too much of a transition here. You know, the bolts are probably going to be in right about here. I don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes. But that's where it's at. Alright, thought I'd do a quick video before I hit it this weekend. So I put the UHMW on the boat and went ahead and strapped it down with wood and little metal chunks and all that, trying to get it to form to the shape of the boat as best possible, and you know, hopefully get some memory out of that when I pull it off before I install it. So I went ahead and I used this heater I picked up and put it underneath the boat, pointing up at it, and to heat the bottom of this up, and basically kind of wanted to see how well it works for when I actually do the job, because temperatures are low right now, and I would probably want to do it with the whole temperature of 70 plus degrees. The adhesive that I'm going to use says not above 90. I'm sure I got it above 90. It was probably 100 plus when I heated the hole, maybe 105. But and I also heated the top of it after I heated the hole, and just to get it to absorb enough heat throughout the whole piece of UHMW to, if it was going to allow it to hold form by heating it and letting it cool down. I wanted to make sure I got it heated pretty well. So did that yesterday, day before, something like that. And so I think, if that's going to work or help out at all, then it is what it is. Because I had, the front was curled up a bit, and the back was a little bit twisted and curled up in that back corner, just from sitting between the two buildings for a couple of years. So anyway, that's probably the best I could think to do. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all this and measure out I'm going to put my intake grate in, which I completed, and at least completed welding, and I primered it and then left it out in the rain for a couple of days. It was nice. Anyway, so what I did was I just went ahead and bridged these on the ends really well. Got good penetration. It's kind of ugly. If I was to do it again, I would probably use 1.25 inches here, and then I would cut out slots and then weld it in that way, just to get a better bite. But I ended up welding around each one, and then ended up with a pile on either side, by burning in and welding around on both sides, up and down. And then after that, I just went ahead and took a bead across and bridged the whole thing just to give it some strength. But I would say, yeah, definitely I would go with, instead of 1 inch, 1.25 inches, cut out the slots, fit them in and weld them. Obviously that'd be a fair amount of work. I don't know if this is permanent. If it ends up being the way I'm going to leave it, I might make the investment of making it out of stainless. So, this is something I wanted to throw together fairly cheaply, but just a flat stock for this. I bought something else as well, but I think the flat stock, I bought 20 feet and pretty much used it up. I got a couple little chunks, but not, a few inches long, a couple inches long, whatever. But it took about 20 feet of flat stock. This cold rolled. It's pretty heavy stuff. It's pretty tough stuff, definitely, from drilling and putting these in, that you could tell it's a little harder than your normal steel, your mild steel. So, but that was like 90 some bucks just for that 20-foot piece of flat stock. But it's worth it, especially for now. It gets me going. Now when this sits in there, the ends of these bars are pretty much sitting on the original grate end pieces, the aluminum that bolts over the original grate, and then these line up with that grate. So, I'm thinking, this ring, that, when these are impacted, that the intake ring will help absorb, this outer frame will help absorb any hits onto the ring itself and more into the hull, but it'll also be sitting on top of the aluminum for the original intake mounts. And so, it'll also transfer into the intake manifold, which that's solely bolted to. So I think it, maybe distributes any impacts a little better on the hull. and maybe a little less on the intake manifold itself. I think it was $1,800. You know, it's pretty heavy duty, so I'm not like super worried about cracking it or whatever. It's just, you know, why not think about it a little more and maybe add to it. So yeah, if this one works out long term, you know, like I said, later down the road, I'll probably do it out of stainless, do it with a little bit wider material in front and back, notch it out, maybe build a little bit better, but this is pretty good. So anyway, next step was to remove the straps, pull the UHMW, put the grate in, and take all my measurements, and then measure out and cut out the hole. And I think I have an old router and some bits that were here in my grandmother's shop from her second husband. So if I can find those, I'll take a router bit around those edges and just roll them over so they're just not sharp edges. You know, you think about it, well, if you're sliding sideways and you hit something, you got a sharp edge here, you know, might catch. Whereas if it's rounded off, maybe it would deflect it a little better. I think the grate and the UHMW are going to be pretty close in height, so I don't know how much of a concern that really is. I'll probably, you know, put the grate in, cut the hole, put the UHMW back on, get a look at it, see what that looks like. Then the plan was just to clean the UHMW real well. Just reading the instructions on the sealant that I ordered. You don't want to use alcohol-based cleaners. Acetone was good, so that's what I'll go with. So I thought about roughing up the UHMW a little bit. You know, it doesn't list it in the list of materials that it's good for. It doesn't list aluminum either, but it's a marine sealant that everybody says, you know, bonds better than you might want it to, and it takes like a week to harden up. 48 hours to basically not be tacky, and I mean it's kind of a slow cure. So in these temperatures, I don't know. I think it's, you know, you want it curing around 70 degrees was like the best temperature. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. I may just warm up the shop once in a while to help out. But the sealant I ordered from let's see, Home Depot, and it's in a metal caulking tube, which is interesting. I never really seen that. So you peel off this back here and just put it in your caulking gun, and then it's a metal seal on both ends right now. And part of the big problem with some of the other marine sealants is they come in caulking tube, like the Loctite you can get at Home Depot or whatever. I don't even know if that's considered an adhesive, but it's definitely not. The tube they put it in, you know, if you go on the reviews, look at it, a lot of people are saying it was hard, it was stiff, it was dried up, they couldn't even use it, you know, because those tubes only have so many months of shelf life, and they're pretty much drying out. That's just because the back of them isn't really sealed that well. And so, and if you've done much with caulking, you know, even silicone does that. You know, you let it sit on a shelf for a year, you go out there and your tube's hard. But so anyway, I kind of like that about this stuff. I bought 3 tubes, thinking, you know, probably don't need the full 3. You know, but mainly wanted to be able to seal the bolts, you know, and the penetrations through the hole. But figured, well, it can't hurt to have some adhesion from the hole to the UHMW if it works out. If it works out, that it will adhere to those materials. So that about scuffing up the top side of the UHMW, we're just going against the hole and then using acetone on it before installation. Pretty much do the same with the hole, you know, and just to make them as porous as possible, get the hole temperature up, you know, above 70 degrees at least. before applying. Maybe a little warmer, 80 degrees, something like that. And then, of course, once you start, you're kind of committed on this. I don't necessarily think that you have to apply the adhesive. Well, I don't know. Like the front, I might leave loose while I'm working from the back forward, because you're supposed to go down the center first. But I kind of like the way it's sitting right now. So I suppose I could apply the adhesive, and then just strap it down like it is. And essentially it's pretty tight the way it is. And I don't think the bolts there's a lot of sucking down left to be done with the bolts. Find out, don't really know for sure. There will be some, you can see gaps there and stuff. So there will be some more sucking down, but as slow a cure time as it has, I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I thought, well, if I mock it up like I am now with the, apply the sealant, put it on, strap it down, position, make sure it's positioned properly. I can work those center rows like they recommend, or the instructions say, and then the outside section, and I can move the hold down material over after I get the center section done. Clamp it back down and then, keep going. So I don't think that's a big deal. It is a lot of holes, and it's a lot of work, but I definitely want to finish it once I start it. I don't really want to leave it that way. So, overnight or anything else, and then finish it the next day. Even though the sealant, it doesn't harden up. It's 7 days at 70 degrees to harden. So, it's probably not that big a deal, even if it did go into a second day, at least with the sealant that I'm using. And let's see. Yeah, so that's the plan. I'll probably do another video. I'll try and, capture anything that I run into that seems a little bit unexpected. But, everything we're talking about here is pretty simple. I'll just follow the instructions on the distances. I went ahead and ordered some more bolts. Got 40 more 1-inch bolts. So with my little collection there, should be fine. I got 50 more washers. So it puts me at 150 washers. And I figured, it's going to get me right where they say I should be. And if I need anything more, I think I've got the bolts to make all the holes, seal it up, tighten them down, especially if we're doing threaded holes. I'm going to go ahead and use these ones. I just didn't have time this week to research and order anything. I kind of forgot about it, with the longer drill tip. And I figure, well, if I wasn't putting nuts on it, it might be a little more critical, but, the threads were pretty reasonable, for what I'm doing, and I believe they're good enough to tighten the nut down or the screw down, and have it hold while I go put nuts on. So I probably do, a section, screw them in, tighten them, then go underneath, put the nuts on and the washers, and then move on to the next section, and then complete that, something to that effect. So anyway, that's the plan for the weekend. Let's see if I can get some more video, show how it went, maybe some commentary on that.